This is Algebra 1, Lesson 14, Practice. We're going to evaluate. So we know what value the x is. It is -2. So instead of writing the x, we're going to put a -2 in its place. All through the problem. And instead of writing that y, we're going to write a 3. And then we're going to follow order of operations. And we can see that there's a subtraction here, but this is a multiplication. So we need to do this multiplication and copy everything else down. -2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6, and one negative is going to make it negative. Then I can say this is the same as -2 plus the opposite of -6, which is +6. And then I subtract those since they have different signs, and I get 4. And I keep the sign of the one with the largest absolute value, and that's positive. For B, I know that A is -4. B is -2. I put in a -4 for this A as well. And since I've got double parentheses, I can put brackets in their place. It's just a little easier on the eyes, I guess. Now in my grouping symbols, I can see here, symbols of inclusion. I can do that. There's a multiplication. 4 times 2 is 8. And it's 2 negatives, so that's going to be positive. I'm going to copy down everything else. In the symbols of inclusion, I can go ahead and do this. 8 minus -4 is like 8 plus the opposite of -4, which is +4. Eight plus 4 is 12. I have -4 minus 12, which is like -4 plus a -12. Which is going to be -16. C. X is -3 minus A is -2. B is -4. And then A is -2 minus B is -4. Watch that minus a negative there. And I'm going to replace these parentheses with brackets. I'm going to look to see what I can do. And here inside these symbols of inclusion, I can simplify that a little bit. That is going to be -2 plus the opposite of -4, which would be +4. And I can go ahead and do that. The signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. Keep the sign of the largest absolute value. Bring down everything else. You can see here that we've got a multiplication, and what breaks it up is this minus sign here. So let's go ahead and do this multiplication, and we'll copy this other down. 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 is 16, and you have 2 negatives, so it's going to be +16, but I brought down that minus that was already there. This is like -3 plus -16, and when I add those, I get 19, and they're both negative, so it's -19. D. X is -4. So this is the opposite of -4 times A, which is -2. I'm going to replace these parentheses with brackets. A is -2 plus X, which is -4. Replace that with brackets. Plus X, which is -4. A lot of stuff going on. I'm going to go with my symbols of inclusion here and go ahead and simplify that. Negative or opposite of -4 times -2 inside the brackets. We can do -2 plus -4, which is -6. We can see here that this is one big multiplication, right? So I'm going to look at, we can go ahead and include this negative in that. You can think of this negative here as the opposite of what you get when you do this, okay? Or we can just count it as though that's like a -1 times all that. Count that negative as well. So let's do the multiplication. 4 times 2, this 4 times 2 is 8, times 6 is 48. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. So that's going to be a positive 48 because there's an even number of negatives, plus -4. These signs are different, so I subtract, and I keep the sign of the one with the largest absolute value.